All right, guys, we've got ourselves a preview here, another one this time for the Detroit Lions. We're going to do our normal thing. We're going to go through all the team. We're going to go through the roster. We're going to go through what happened last year, what can happen this year, what will happen this year, and all that regular fun stuff. So let's jump on into it. Detroit Lions, again, last year, bit disappointing from them. They finished the season 9-8 while missing the playoffs. It's not exactly where they're hoping to be, and probably a little bit unlucky. Some of the underlying stuff had them as better than 9-8, but you lose a couple coin flips here and there, or the defense doesn't show up. You get some injuries at the back end, and all of a sudden, a team that probably should be 10-7 or 11-6 is 9-8 and misses the playoffs. So the margins are super thin, and they just did not help the Lions this time around. The offense was very good still, fourth in points, ninth in EPA. There were some setbacks. Again, that's going to happen when Ben Johnson, you know, moves out of there. And what you do have also is, again, they ended up getting rid of Morton, but, the replacement isn't as good as they want it to be. And you kind of just get a little bit of a step back on the offense. Again, it was still very good. Ninth in EPA. Again, fourth in points. Did struggle on third and fourth down, though. 22nd in the league in success rate on those two downs, which isn't very good. The offensive line took a step back. It's not really one of those, used to count on it being top five all the time. It's not really there anymore. And the run game suffered a little bit, and the run game suffered for some play calling deficiencies and stuff like that. So hopefully some of the changes they made will kind of help there. They bring in Drew Petzing from Arizona. We'll see. Mike Kafka is also supposed to be pretty involved, who I personally think is decent. Petzing is a little bit different, and we'll have to see, but I think Kafka is useful for sure. So we'll see if they can kind of bring this defense or the offense up a notch. Defense, it wasn't great, and again, it finished 13th in EPA. Though that felt a lot flukier because, again, it couldn't really get off the field on downs, and some of the injury problems. I believe this is the second year running where they've lost the most games to injury on the defensive side for 2 years in a row now, and it's not going to start particularly well this year, which we'll get into. But if we can get the defense to solid, and halfway average, again, this is said for a lot of teams, but if you can get the defense to average, then you're in a pretty good spot because the offense can be so good. This is another one of those situations here. So we'll see how that happens. We'll see if any of those things adjust. Again, a couple changes, some roster changes. We'll get into it a sec, but there's stuff to build on there. Again, 9th in total offensive EPA, 27th in rush offensive EPA is not where you want to be, particularly when you have a player as talented as Gibbs there. You're hoping that the offensive line could be a little bit better. We'll see. 13th in pass defense, 14th in rush defense, 13th in total defensive EPA. So, again, there's room to move up. But, again, it'll have to be shown. Otherwise, we're kind of just repeating what happened last year. There are some players going out the door here. Terrion Arnold with his whole thing. Taylor Decker's gone. Alex Anzalone gone. Those are pretty big misses. Amik Robertson gone. David Montgomery, another couple misses there. Graham Glasgow gone. DJ Reader on the interior gone. Roy Lopez interior gone. Khalif Raymond gone. Davenport gone. Awasika gone. So there are a couple of misses here. Again, Taylor Decker is a miss. Anzalone's a miss. David Montgomery in the run game, bit of a miss. Amik Robertson could be a miss. Terrion Arnold, miss. So there are guys going out the door here that need to be replaced, and we'll see how they did. Along the way, these are some of the guys they bought in. Again, Cade Mays at center, Larry Borum at right tackle, DJ Wanham on the edge, Christian Ezian at safety. Isaiah Pacheco comes in at running back, and the Juice Scruggs at center. And then the draft bought in a few players as well. Excuse me. Blake Miller, tackle. Derek Moore at defensive end. Jimmy Rolder, linebacker. Keith Abney at corner. Kendrick Law, wide receiver. Skylar Gill Howard at defensive tackle. And Tyre West on the defensive line as well. So They're going to try and get a little bit younger here, particularly on the offensive line there and defensive line, add some early round talent to the trenches and see where they can get to. But again, it's a lot of guys missed in some freaky ways. And, we'll see what it looks like. But let's take a look at the roster now. We'll start at quarterback. Jared Goff, in my opinion, is comfortably borderline top 10, I suppose. He's my 11th ranked quarterback. I think he's above average at least. And again, he can do enough that you kind of ask him to. 12th on PFF last year. He does what's needed, as I said. There are a few drawbacks to his game that kind of prevent him from having a genuinely high ceiling. Again, he's not super, super mobile or anything like that, and pressure up the middle really gets to him. But again, second in the league in pass yards with 4,564 last year, second in TDs with 34 to 8 picks. So that's a really nice scenario there, or a really nice ratio there. And again, he's not going to bomb it down the field all the time, and he's not going to beat you with his legs or anything, but he's a really good, solid quarterback. And normally for the system, that's kind of what you need. Again, Ben Johnson's system was very similar like that. Last year, it dips a little bit. It's tough to kind of hang with that offense that's being drawn up now in Chicago, but otherwise, he was still pretty solid. He gets his fourth offensive coordinator in 6 years here, which is a lot of change. 3 different offensive coordinators in a row, which will be a lot of change. So we'll see. But again, most of the time, he's just needed to be a system guy and be, without making mistakes. Again, very similar to Brock Purdy and Shanahan's system. Just be without a ton of mistakes, and he's been pretty solid so far. So hopefully he can go ahead and keep that up coming into it here. The weapons are really good here. So, again, the mistakes is just what you're trying to not have. And again, another new offensive coordinator, which will be a little bit funky. See if we can get a little bit more comfortable down to down. Again, the offense last year was a little bit more explosive and less funky down to down, which made like their numbers again a little bit off, and made their third and fourth down stuff a little bit skewed to the negative because a lot of the offense came in chunks. But if they can get better down to down while keeping a hold of some of those chunk plays, it should take a pretty significant step forward. But we'll see. But it was still, again, for Goff, 5th in EPA last year in passing, even when it took a step back. So could see some jumps there. Again, the floor with Jared Goff, I think, is pretty high. The ceiling, not really there. I think his set of outcomes is pretty tight, and you're not going to get too many outlier stuff with Jared Goff. And a solid quarterback again. Josh Dobbs comes in. They bought in Teddy Bridgewater, but he retired, so they bring Josh Dobbs in. He'll be the second. Useful in a game or two if need be. Luke Altmaier as well, further down the list, which we don't want to be seeing too much of Luke. So you do have a backup here that can be useful for a game or two, but again, further down the line, maybe not so much. Skill position groups. We'll start at wide receiver. This is a pretty nice duo you got here. Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of the better wide receivers in the league, can play all across the formation. Really terrifyingly good out of the slot. Almost impossible to cover. He is a very, very good wide receiver. Jameson Williams was in the midst of a breakout last year. Deep threat, can play, can really move insanely quick, agile, is a really good wide receiver duo. And Jameson Williams, would not be surprised to see him break out fully and have like a really fantastic year. He's just, it clicked along the way, and it's really starting to show on the field. So you have a really elite 1-2, one of the best in the league for sure, top 3 or 4 for sure. Further down the line, a little bit funky. Isaac TeSlaa is in there. His returns, if you want to call him that, his production is a little bit funky because it seems to just be like insane catches in the end zone, and like that's it. We'll see. I haven't heard a ton of good from him coming out of camp, and I've never been super huge on that, but he's a pretty big red zone threat, a huge guy, and Hopefully he can be useful, take a step this year. Greg Dortch, we'll see, can be a useful piece. I kind of liked him in Arizona. So hopefully he can be useful there. He's probably going to do some return stuff as well, but I kind of like having him on the roster. Dominic Lovett, Cedric Wilson, as we kind of get further down the line here, could run some snaps, but not expecting a ton. Tom Kennedy, Malik Cunningham, even further down the list, not expecting a ton there. But again, you have an elite one too. As long as those two are healthy, probably doesn't matter too much who you put at 3 and 4. You're probably getting some pretty fantastic returns regardless. Running back, you can argue the best running back in the league if you want with Jahmyr Gibbs. He is incredible. His pace is crazy quick. He can get outside. He can get inside. I expect him to have a pretty significant year. He can catch out of the backfield. I expect him to have a pretty significant year there as well. This is very similar to what we spoke about with James Cook. These do-it-all running backs should continue to see a rise in production, particularly if you're pacey, particularly if you can catch and make moves on the outside and be good in space. Because again, right now teams are working on getting better against cover 2 shells, and while that transforms, what will beat the cover 2 is plays underneath and really good running games, really good running schemes, short passes, all that stuff. That's the stuff that's going to be given to you by those shells. And if you have an elite back like Jahmyr Gibbs, all those players, Bijan, we spoke about James Cook. There are a variety of different players there who are going to just get a ton of work. And I expect a ton of work out of Jahmyr Gibbs on top of it being really, really good. They do lose David Montgomery, and Isaiah Pacheco comes in. That is a downgrade there. Montgomery was pretty useful in short yardage stuff. We'll see what that kind of looks like, how that changes a little bit. But Pacheco is a bit of a downgrade there, and you don't want Pacheco being the one. If Gibbs were to get hurt, I imagine they kind of just find a running back somewhere else instead of just giving Pacheco out to the one there. But it is a pretty big step down. Sione Vaki, Jacob Sailors further down the list. Even then, not guys you want on the field very often. Tight end room. This is a good tight end room if Sam Laporta is healthy. Again, dealing with some stuff last year. We'll see. Heard some good things, so hopefully Sam Laporta is healthy again. A really, really good tight end, a really good weapon. This is why you don't need a third or fourth receiver, really, as long as Sam's healthy, because he is a very excellent tight end. Brock Wright, Tyler Conklin. Conklin's been around a long time. Anthony Fursker has been around a while. Good tight ends, good useful depth there. Brock Wright, solid, can block, can get out there as well. So it's a really good skill position group. I'm not so sure that there are any better, to be perfectly frank. You have an elite tight end. You have a top 3 back at minimum. You have a top 3 or 4 receiving room here. There are very few teams who can spit out that kind of talent in the weaponry room. So I expect this room to be the best probably on paper. There are others that are really good. Again, Cincinnati have a pretty good one. They don't have the talent at tight end, don't have that talent at wide or at running back that Detroit do. Philly really don't. Even if I just kind of double checked here where some of these lie. Again, running back, Buffalo's got a good running back room. Indianapolis, Philly, the Niners, you're just not going to get the rest of it there. The Rams might be the one that tested a little bit, but even then, it's tough for me to see. So I really like this room. I think this is the best skill position group in the league. And you have a solid basic quarterback, which is always nice. Offensive line. Again, gone are the days that this is a top 5 unit comfortably every year. It's in a bit of flux. Again, Taylor Decker goes out the door. The interior needs a little bit of help. They bought in a guy there who we'll talk about in a moment. A rookie will be starting at right tackle as well as Taylor Decker goes. Blake Miller will be that guy. Mid-first round pick. I think he went 17th, I think it was. He needs to hit the ground running for this to be a really good, or for this to be like an above average unit, or maybe a top third type of unit. This could be an above average unit because Penei Sewell is just so good on the other side. Um, but yeah, Blake Miller, hopefully he can get in there, hit the ground running, be good from the jump. That'll be huge. Again, Penei Sewell on the other side. He's what, the best tackle in the league, probably comfortably, I would guess. Number one run grade last year with a bullet. Incredibly good. Top 10 pass grade to go along with it. I mean, there are none who are going to, the very few tackles who are going to spit out that kind of production in both the pass game and the run game. Very, very good player, elite player. He'll be moving to left tackle, but I can't really see any problems just kind of switching over. He played quite a bit of that in college. So, yeah, you have the best tackle in the league. You got a first rounder at right tackle. We'll see if he can come in and hit the ground running there. Interior, this is kind of where things fall away a little bit. They bring in Cade Mays. He's solid. Nothing spectacular or anything, but solid, which is nice. Pass block's good. Run block, it's okay, but, solid enough there. He's going to miss a lot of time. 8 to 10 weeks, it looks like. That was 2 or 3 weeks ago when that diagnosis was put in. So he's still got time to go, maybe another 2 months or so. Which sucks. Which means Scruggs will be the guy who jumps in. He was really bad last year. He'll need to be solid for these first couple of months and just do enough so that you can win some games and be useful on offense until Mays comes back. He'll need to be. It's not a spot I'm looking and loving, but he'll need to be. At guard, Tate Ratledge, 22nd ranked guard on PFF last year. Really good in run block there, pass block issue, but it is a solid guard. Nothing spectacular. Again, Mahogany, not fantastic. It hasn't been fantastic for a bit. Pass block wasn't very good. And again, we spoke about one of Jared Goff's issues is dealing with pressure up the middle. When you have a guard and a new center who aren't particularly great, that could be problematic as we go along. So not loving that. Depth, Scruggs moves up again. He's not super great, and he'll be the starter at the moment. Barch was okay in his low amount of snaps. Frazier, really bad in his snaps. Borum, okay in spurts. Manu's bad and hurt, which isn't ideal. This is not an offensive line that can really afford injuries to good players. Like if, God forbid, Penei Sewell misses time or Blake Miller hits the ground and he's not going along with it, it's just a real struggle to kind of get him going. We could be looking at an offensive line that's a bit of a mess, which kind of sucks here, particularly for the run game. But as for the offense as a whole, again, offensive line could be an issue, particularly the interior. You have some new play callers here with Petzing. Again, Kafka, I think, will be involved. So we'll see if that's a step up on Morton. But the talent's here, man. Again, you have a good quarterback with a good base, best skill group. That's a really nice floor. If you can just get some good offensive line play, there's no reason why this offense can't be really good again. And frankly, I'm expecting some good returns here, particularly when we get to the schedule because of it. But I think the offense can be really good. Defense, this could be an issue. Again, ton of injuries last year. There's 2 years in a row now where they've lost the most return to injury on the defensive side of the ball, which is not ideal. You hope they can stay healthy. Again, we'll get to that. But we'll see. Defensive line, there's some really good talent here, and the rest of it is not so good. Aiden Hutchinson is obviously the jewel here of this defense. He's an excellent, excellent edge rusher. He's been excellent since he joined the league. Last year, he was PFF's 4th best rusher. 16 sacks last year, 100 pressures, which was the most in the NFL. 4 forced fumbles, 6th in the league with 35 stops. Just elite all around. He is a very, very good player. needs to be a very, very good player. This defense can straight up not afford to lose that. Alim McNeill on the interior, solid player. Had some issues last year, and that's probably why he didn't perform as well. I expect him to kind of get back with a full off season there. We'll see. But he's a solid player. I expect him to play at a pretty decent level. The rest of this unit is a bit of a struggle. Tyleik Williams, the other player on the interior, okay in run defense, pass rush sometimes can kind of put out there, but you're not getting a ton of production there. DJ Wanham is one of the edges they bought in. Another who's, just not super great. PFF's 96th edge last year is kind of a worry. Again, PFF has its issues, but pass rush is one of those ones I think is quite good. So that's a bit of a worry. The depth here, nothing fantastic. Derek Barnes, they kind of can bring in from the linebacker unit and kind of play out there on run defending packages and stuff. He's useful there. Peyton Turner can give you some decent snaps here and there. Derek Moore, the rookie, hope to kind of bring him in, man. That's the kind of guy you're hoping second round pick can come in and be useful in his first year there and contribute on, a decent amount of snaps throughout the year. Onwuzurike, off an ACL tear, but could be useful as a player who's shown to be useful along the way. But again, coming off a major injury, it's not what you want to see, but could be useful. The rest of this depth, couple of late round rookies, Skylar Gill-Howard, Tyre West. Tyre is an incredible name. Not going to get much out of kind of anybody else. Miles Adams, Winnow, or anybody like that. So it's an interesting unit. You have a unbelievable player in Aiden Hutchinson, a good player in Alim McNeill, and then the rest needs kind of figuring out. So those two need to play well just as a whole. They just need to. Aiden Hutchinson needs to be a game wrecker a lot on the edge. Linebacker. This is another pretty interesting unit. You have a supremely talented linebacker here in Jake Campbell. One of the best linebackers in the league last year. The run stuff is there are very few linebackers in the league that can hang with Jack Campbell in the run defense game. It's like Fred Warner and nobody, really. That's how good he's been in the run game the last year or two. The coverage is pretty decent as well, which gives him a super, super high floor. He is just better coverage ability away from being just behind Fred Warner. That's how good he's been. But a really, really good player. The other two starters, again, Derek Barnes, solid, can play in space a little bit, but a really, really good run defender. Again, we spoke about him. You can kind of put him on the D-line and run packages, which is pretty good. It's nice to have a player who can kind of bounce around there. The third starting spot, seemingly a little bit up in the air. Malcolm Rodriguez is off an injury, but an okay piece. Nothing spectacular, but, okay in coverage, okay getting downhill. Devin White looks to be someone who might be ahead of him. We'll see kind of how that goes. My expectation is that they kind of just swap these guys around depending on the type of package they run. But Devin White has been one of those linebackers who's really fantastic on the blitz and pretty not useful in every other aspect. So again, there's a little bit of depth here. Assuming, again, one of those two is going to be depth between Rodriguez and Devin White. Jimmy Rolder comes in as a rookie. We'll see if he can be useful here. Troy Reeder can be useful in smaller sample sizes. Damone Clark, the depth in this room is pretty decent considering the talent on the top end. So I like the room, like the talent, like the depth. Again, then you have a blue chip piece there and Jack Campbell as well, which is really great. Secondary, a funky unit. Again, loses Amik Robinson, loses Terrion Arnold to just one of the more incredible stories. Allegedly, one of the more incredible stories. There is some talent in here, to be fair. Brian Branch, best player in the unit, great in coverage, can play nickel, can play safety, can play boundary if you need him to, I suppose. He can do pretty much everything. He is fantastic, again, in coverage. The run stuff is elite. He can get downhill. He can blitz. He can do everything. This is one of the best safeties in the league. Really, really, really good player. That being said, he's hurt and he's going to miss a decent amount of time. I'm not exactly sure how long. It's probably 5 to 10 weeks. It seems a little bit up in the air. For a while, it seemed, hey, like a couple weeks ago, it was like, hey, he might be back early on in the season. And now it's like, we'll see. And like 5 to 10 weeks seems to be the general consensus floating around. So not ideal for someone as talented and as incredibly important to this defense. Kerby Joseph, another one who sits further back there at safety, another one really good. Good run defender, really good in covering space. He's a really good player. Another one who's hurt and won't be back for a while. So those are the two most talented players in this defense, are in this secondary. They're both going to miss a lot of time. And again, this has been 2 years running before this year. This could be the third year running where you're getting all that talent sitting home injured, and that's not where we want to be, particularly in the secondary. When secondaries are not playing well, the defense never plays well, and it doesn't matter what's going on. So this unit is going to have to hang until those guys come back, and it's going to be pretty difficult. The depth here at safety, I mean, it's okay. It's not great, but you don't want a lot of these guys starting every snap for 8 weeks. Avonte Maddox is useful in his shorter stints, can play all over the place as well. So this is a useful player to have, but you don't want him out there all the time. Chuck Clark, been around a really long time. Not super great these days, but a vet, and we'll see if he can do enough holding off. Thomas Harper, playing all right in spurts. Christian Izien, who they bought in, not super great. So the safety room needs those other guys back. And again, you're going to get Brian Branch playing at like nickel a lot. So not ideal there. Corner. This is okay. Considering, again, no Brian Branch at nickel. DJ Reed, solid player, can hang in coverage, good in the run game. This is a solid, slightly above average corner, good player. Roger McCreary, who they bought in, this has been up and down for camp for him, but I've always thought of him as a solid player, so we'll see where that kind of ends up with him. Rock Ya-Sin, another player who's relatively solid, could be useful. Or another player who is useful, sorry, he's not spectacular or anything like that. Again, you're just getting solid play out of your 2 and your 3 most likely. And it's Rakestraw, hoping that he can take a step. He missed time with injury. A couple days ago, he also left practice, which we're hoping isn't too serious, but not what you want to see. Keith Abney, the rookie, fourth round, I think, comes into this room. We'll see. So the depth here is decent enough, and some of these guys further down the line could be contributors as the season goes along. But again, the injuries are problematic in this unit, and overall puts it in a bit of a funky space. Like, if Brian Branch and Kerby Joseph are healthy, you're getting a really good safety and a really good nickel. And then you have DJ Reed on the outside who's solid, and then you can get McCreary in there, or you can get Rakestraw, or you can get whoever turns out to be the best second corner, Rock Ya-Sin, and then whoever turns out to be the second best safety on the field there all at once, and you're looking at a pretty good secondary. The problem is when you're missing the elite player at nickel and you're missing an elite player at safety, all of a sudden you've got a blah player at safety and a blah player at safety again and a blah player, an okay set of 3 corners, but nothing spectacular. Then it kind of shrinks a little bit, shrinks the ceiling. So not exactly ideal as of this moment. Late in the season, we might be looking at a secondary that's pretty decent. At the moment, maybe not so much. As for the defense as a whole, again, the early season here could be problematic. We're talking about Brian Branch, we're talking about Kerby Joseph. That's going to be problematic. And when the D-line isn't like hitting from all sides, Then you can kind of throw on secondaries there. You need a Lee McNeil to kind of take a pretty big step from what he was last year. Needs him to be healthy. Need Hutchinson to be a game wrecker a lot to stop drives. And we could be seeing some shootouts, some pretty aggressive shootouts here with the way this defense is set up over the first portion of the season. But let's go look at the schedule and talk about those teams here. First 5 before the bye: New Orleans at home, Buffalo on the road, New York Jets at home, at Carolina, at Arizona. There's no reason why this team can't score points in all 5 of those games. And again, this is where the schedule comes in. It's one of the easier ones. You're going to get some spots. Again, the offense should eat early on here, and there aren't too many teams defensively that can kind of affect you in the interior. Buffalo maybe with Ed Oliver, but Ed is kind of dealing with some stuff, and he might not be available for that. It's a tough game, obviously. You're going to Buffalo. They're opening their new stadium, short week. But the offense should be just fine there. And the offense should be, frankly, fine in all of these games, particularly at Carolina, at Arizona, again, at Buffalo. If Ed Oliver is not playing that Buffalo game, there should be no reason why this team can't score there. And the Jets and New Orleans are okay, but nothing super spectacular. So there's no reason why this offense can't get off to a good start. Then you go on a bye week, and then it gets a little bit tougher here. You got Green Bay at home, Minnesota at home, at Miami, and then New England on a neutral field overseas. Tampa at home and Chicago at home. You get a lot of home games here. Again, 2 out of 6 or 4 out of 6. One is a road game, one is a neutral. And again, some spots where the offense might be useful. At Miami, Tampa Bay, perhaps. Chicago don't have a good defense. Then you go to Atlanta, should be good offensively there. Titans, I don't personally expect to be good, but at home, at Minnesota will be tough. Giants at home, at Chicago, at Green Bay. So there's a lot of spots for the offense to be useful. And hopefully in this back end, by week 12, 13, hopefully the defense is healthy and Brian Branch is back and Kirby Joseph is back. And that's a pretty long timeline, but again, you're back here for hopefully a stretch where, like, if the defense is healthy here, there are a lot of winnable games in that back stretch. There are a lot of winnable games in this front stretch. You go into that bye week like 4-1, you're looking pretty good. And then you can kind of build on that there. But again, it's a relatively easy schedule. Just need the defense to be good and the offensive line to not be horrible, and you're looking at it should be a playoff team. So that being said, there are a lot of I think I kind of want to add a bet, but I'm trying to see if it's priced in a decent range. But again, I think the offense will be just fine. Let's see if we can get down to it. It's a bit heavy priced. We're probably going to bet it, though. We'll bet it a little bit here. So we do have 2 bets. Again, the schedule's comfy. That being said, it's built into the line. This is the favorite in the North. One of the heavier favorites to make the playoffs. I don't want to bet any of that. So we're going to bet on the offensive upside a little bit. And I think, again, the offensive line could be problematic. We'll see. But I really like the floor of Jared Goff. I love this skill position group. And I think there are a lot of games where they could be just fine offensively. And there are very few games where the interior of the opposing team could really cause a ton of problems. Again, you play Minnesota twice, that could be problematic. If New England are healthy defensively, that could be problematic. Maybe Tampa Bay on the interior, perhaps with Vita Vea. Other than that, man, I'm not so sure that the rest of these teams can bother you offensively. I'm not so sure you can't score points on Chicago. I'm not so sure you can't score points comfortably on Buffalo. The first 5 games of the season, I think they can score plenty of points. And then, you get Miami down the line, Tampa, Chicago twice, Atlanta, you should be able to score on. Tennessee, by the looks of it, the Giants. There's a lot of games here where you can score points. So we do have 2 bets here. One we're about to make Lions to score 1+ touchdown in every regular season game at -170. Again, I think there are very few spots where that'll be even tested. At um, at Minnesota will be difficult. But other than that, where are we looking that they don't score one? New England, if they're fully healthy defensively because of that secondary, maybe. But other than that, I'm pretty confident that they score a bunch of points. And our second bet, we're going to take the upside on that. Perhaps Drew Petzing comes in and Mike Kafka comes in and they're solid. If they're solid, the floor here is going to be really high. And again, the schedule lends to some pretty aggressive scoring here. So Lions to score the most regular season points at plus 501, $5.54 bet. We'll take a shot at them being useful game to game, and we'll take a shot at them being useful all season long and being a little bit better than the market kind of thinks that they could be. So there we go. Those are the Detroit Lions. It's an interesting football team. Again, the ceiling's pretty aggressively high here because of the schedule. But they're also going to need to be healthy on the O line. They're going to need to be healthy in the secondary at the back end of the season. Otherwise, the potential ceiling, Super Bowl wise, probably won't be there. This could end up being very similar to that year, where they went out to Washington in the playoffs. It's a team that's set up to score a bunch of points. New coordinators, we'll see. It's a team whose defense could be decent if healthy. And right now they're not. They haven't been for 2 years. So there are a couple red flags, but we'll bank on some of their regular season stuff showing up well, and we'll see how that goes. But there we go. Detroit Lions.